just going to start recording. And I'll try very hard to keep an eye on the waiting room, so if anybody else shows up, I will let them in. But I just wanted to kick things off. My name is Katie. I'm the director at MacRostie Art Center, and I just wanted to welcome you all. It's nice to see so many of our artists and a few other folks joining us tonight. As I noted earlier, we are going to be recording the session so we can post it on our website. I will be doing that, and I guess the format for the evening is pretty informal. I have a PowerPoint that I will be sharing. I'll share my screen, and I'll kind of just kick things off, and then I will hand it over. We'll just kind of move through each artist's work. We should have probably about 5 to 8 minutes or so for each artist to kind of talk a little bit about their pieces and take any specific questions at the time, and then maybe we'll have some time at the end for other questions as well. So, all right, so with that, I'm going to try sharing my screen here. We'll see how this goes. Okay, then. Okay, so hopefully folks can see my screen, and I did ask people to kind of keep themselves on mute if you're not speaking, but if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself, and when I bring up various people's artwork, you can unmute yourself and speak. So to start off, I just wanted to mention that this is, of course, the artist talk for the Art of the Grain exhibition, which is currently on view at MacRostie Art Center for the month of July. And there are 11 different artists who are featured here, and from Minnesota and Wisconsin. And so this is just a list of the folks that are in the exhibit. And I was going to run a little video of the walkthrough of the exhibit, but because I was just a little afraid that it was going to be too much for my computer and connection, so I just wanted to let you all know that there is a video posted on our website at macrostieartcenter.org exhibitions, and you can go and check that out, and that's also where we will be posting the artist talk video as well. So with that, I was hoping that maybe Craig Jentz would be able to pop on and tell us a little bit about, or anybody else too, but about how this particular group came together, and yeah, and sort of how it's organized.
Yeah, so Craig Jentz here. We're a loose collection of, we call ourselves the wood artists. That was kind of the branding exercise we went through 3 years ago. We decided to get a group of us to have space at the Art World exhibit in May of 2017, I believe it was. So that was our first foray into getting people together, getting ourselves, defining what our mission is, getting the logo, all the branding stuff. And we had the show at Art World. Unfortunately, the second year of that, we lost our space, and of course, COVID had disrupted things this year. So this is our second time back as a group, and we have a couple others on the calendar coming up in the next 2 years. So our goal really is to get fine furniture in front of the public and help them appreciate the beauty that is wood and the beauty that is the things that can be made out of wood. So that's really our mission. We're all very passionate about what we do, and as you will see in the exhibit as we walk through, there are various styles and various approaches, but everybody on the call and everybody in the exhibit definitely has a real passion for making and designing and building things with their hands. So I'll let any of my colleagues add on if they would like.
Well, I guess you summed it up pretty well, Craig. So we will go ahead, and I'm going to move on. And I'm just going to put a couple of things into the chat right now, just as a suggestion for when we're moving through folks' work. If you want to just share a little bit about some short background of kind of how you got your start, little bit about process, materials, inspiration, things like that, or if you have any notes on any of the specific pieces that are included in the show. So I'll just put that in the chat window if you need something to refer to in terms of what to talk about. We'll go ahead and get started. And just as a heads up, Craig, I've got you on first, so.
Okay, so you're gonna scroll to my pieces?
Yep.
So
I
Craig
will here. Let's see. I'll do that while I'm multitasking here. Okay.
And I am off of mute, right? Okay.
You are. Yep.
I've been woodworking pretty much all my life. My father was a home builder. I was exposed to tools and using my hands as a kid. He's definitely a 2x4s and nails guy, not a finished carpenter, not, you know, kind of into the artsy side of things. I had a career in IT management, and particularly doing a lot of international work for 35 years and recently retired. My whole life, though, outside of my corporate world, woodworking and furniture making was my passion. And now I am pursuing that as the second chapter in life. And I share a wonderful shop space with some very wonderful colleagues, many of them on the call here tonight. So that's a little bit about me. What I do, a little bit of everything, but I really like things that are curved and non-straight lines. And I like showing off the beauty of the wood itself. So if we go back to, you know, if looking at this table, I mean, I think this is kind of the epitome of, it's all this very graceful curves. I do a lot of bent lamination work to make these curves. And that's just, you know, something I love to do. Going to the next thing, the chair, I cannot take credit for this design. It's from some Danish designers back in the 60s. This chair is one of the first things I made once I got my own shop out of college. It's 33 years old, but it's held up well. And again, I just love this straight line, or the curves and the just nice, smooth flowing lines. Ribbon table, this is another just sinuous line of wood. So it's coopered like a wine barrel, different pieces of wood glued up edge to edge, and just hand carved to get that nice undulating curve. Next piece, Who's the Fairest? This is really about showing off the beauty of wood. So this mirror features spalted beech, and spalting is a rotting process where the log gets fungus in it, and the different fungal colonies build barriers to protect themselves from the other colonies. And all those black lines in the wood, those are the fungal colony walls that they built. So this is just an example of showing off just the pure beauty of the wood. And then I think the last one, okay, here's where it gets weird. In addition to all of that kind of really modern stuff, I do what I call functional sculpture. So it started off, I've got a TV entertainment center that's the first 3 feet of a 65 Volkswagen microbus made out of mahogany. This motor is my childhood. I grew up with my grandfather's cottage. That's what they call cabins in Wisconsin, at my grandfather's cottage, and spent many a summer in his wooden boat with the real version of this Johnson 10-horse motor. So I've kind of gotten on a little bit of a marine theme. If you go to my website, there's some even a wackier version of this that actually dispenses beverages and couches and other things that are made to look like just classic industrial design. So that's a little bit of kind of the whimsical side of what I do as well. So that's me.
Thanks, Craig. Does anybody have any questions for Craig right off the bat? You can go ahead and unmute yourself if you do.
I think Craig should note that this piece here is all wood.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a lot of folks coming into the gallery who are very surprised to note that all of right down to the screws and the apparently rubber handle, but it's all wood.
And mahogany, which boats are often made of.
Yep.
I don't hardly believe it.
Can you
Anyone
hear
have-
me?
Oh, yep, go ahead, Polly.
Oh, good. Okay. I never can tell whether with a little microphone with a red line through it, if that means I'm not to talk or if I can talk. Anyway, oh, Craig, these are beautiful. I just love them. I would love a copy of everything.
Thank you. And I love doing it. I just, again, my professional life was all about solving problems and managing people and processes and projects. And there was very few things in that career that were tangible.
Mhm.
What I do now, it's all about stuff that I can touch and it's tangible and I love it.
Right. Wonderful. Thanks for showing it.
All right, if any, we'll save some time at the end for questions as well, but I'm gonna move along here to Richard. I've got you up next, if that's all right.
Okay. Am I unmuted now?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Well, my background, I spent several years doing carpentry and home remodeling until I was about 35 years old. I was dabbling in woodworking and was attending some schools and doing week-long workshops. And then I think it was in 91 or 2 in there, I spent a year, I went to England and attended a furniture making program there. That was kind of old school and pretty traditional, but I got a good grounding, and it's the kind of thing I sort of use all of it and I use none of it. But it was a good year and I was immersed in the work, and it kind of changed my life. And since then I've been full-time doing furniture making. These pieces that I'm showing are all speculative things. They're things I've done because I wanted to do them. A lot of my work has been for churches, and that's been a good niche over the years. But these are the things that I really enjoy because it's free reign, and I get to explore some ideas. And I'll start with this piece is a wall hanging, and it's, I think, maybe the first thing I've made that is not functional. And how this started, through the church work, I was attending conferences, and there was a woman from Toronto named Sue Obata who was there, and I liked her stained glass work. And of course, stained glass artists have to turn to church work to survive, but she also does some artwork, and she likes to do speculative things. And I asked her once if she wanted to collaborate on something, and it started with a room screen. And I sent her a template of the size of the glass, and she created 3 different sets of glass. So I made this and a room screen you'll probably seen, and then a mirror and wall hanging piece. But so anyway, that is painting on mouth-blown German glass. You can, when you look at it closely, you can see the striations and the bubbles and the flaws. Stained glass artists like mouth blown because it's not perfect. And then she paints on it and fires it in a kiln. And I kind of like these pieces because I tend to wind things kind of tight, and I use a lot of kind of square section, and I like the way that you can develop rhythms with cross sections and the way a piece can gather its height or move your eye around. And it ends up being kind of rigidly proportioned, and then you get this gesture of the human hand, these quick gestural expressive strokes, and I think it creates a little interest in the piece. And so anyway, this piece is I think the central reddish brown wood is sapele, and then the wood flanking it is white oak that has been cerused, and I may stumble on the spelling. I think it's C-E-R-U-S-E, but it's an old technique where you scour out open grain of the wood and then drive in some white pigment. It's usually stained black, and then the white pigment, it's almost like grouting tile. But white oak works well for that because it has some complex grain patterns in it. So strictly non-functional wall hanging. It's sculptural. It's got a little bit of gesture in it, and it was fun to make. So, and then these little tables, I make a lot of tables in all sizes. I'm constantly making small tables. It's a way I frequently, when I'm done with a project, I have leftover bits and pieces, and I'll frequently just see what little thing I can make. And that's kind of how I got into these small tables. And I had a commission one time where somebody requested color. And I worked with a local person named Kevin Southwick, who's quite a good finisher. And he helped me develop a procedure to get this kind of color into wood. But those tops are European sycamore. It takes a curly figure, and there's a series of dyes and colorants. I start by dyeing it completely black and sanding off most of it, and then adding color. It's the grain in the wood is interlocked and swirling, and so some of the dyes get pulled in deeper than others. And anyway, people seem to enjoy color, and it's fun for me to do, and I've experimented with color on these kinds of pieces over the years too. So the main body is ash that's had a little bit of white pigment added to the finish to brighten it up. And anyway, it's fun to experiment with color, and it's a way for me to use up some of my leftover materials, which are perfectly good, but not enough to do a large project on. So. And this is the room screen that kind of started my collaboration with Sue Obata. She did this, this kind of calligraphic, and again, you see this gestural stroke of the human hand that's in a very rigidly proportioned piece. I use arithmetic proportioning system frequently, and on this piece, if you start on the vertical boards that flank the glass, with an arithmetic proportion, you take a module and then you repeat it. In this case, I took a 1-inch module. And does this cursor show up?
I don't think so.
Okay. Anyway, but starting on either side of the glass, that vertical stave or panel is 8 inches, and moving out, it's 7 inches to 6 inches to 5 inches at the bottom, 4 inches at the top. And the center accent with the darker wood is 3 inches, and the glass is 2. So it goes 8 to 2 in increments of 1 inches. And it gives it a real discipline. So again, it's wound pretty tight. It's all vertical grain, and it's very quiet. And then there's just this gestural splash of motion and movement that you can see the human hand moving across that, and I find that very appealing. So anyway, those are the 3 pieces.
Did anybody have any questions right now for Richard?
No, but boy, that is so exciting to hear the different techniques. That first thing that you showed, Richard, the white oak and using that ceruse, how do you say it? I'm not sure. But looking at it, I thought it was cloth. I mean, you know, I can't see it real close as if I was there, but it was just so unique, and your tables are so cool. I just, this is so exciting, you guys.
Thank you.
I get to make a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm lucky enough to have been able to purchase one of Richard's pieces, also a vertical piece. And as he said, his first asymmetrical piece is a long mirror with a piece of glass by Obata, and then his woodwork around it. And it's hanging in my living room, and I'm quite pleased with it.
I'm
Too bad,
fortunate.
Roger, if you could move your computer over to where it's in your room, then we could see it.
Jason, were you going to say something?
I was going to say I've been fortunate enough to get to watch most of these pieces be built since I've shared a shop with Richard for 13 years now, I think.
Wow,
Long
cool.
time.
And
that's a
I
good-
find it curious that he describes them as being wound pretty tight because I don't really see them that way.
Well, that's a good segue because you're up next, Jason.
All right. Well, I got my start in woodworking. My dad was a carpenter, primarily building and remodeling, but he could do anything, you know, from trimming out a house to, you know, tile, and he does it all. And so he always had sort of a little shop set up in the garage, and I was out there tinkering from the time I was like, I don't know, I guess 8 or 9 years old is kind of my first recollection. And actually my first power tool accident was like 9th grade. But so I've always been building things, and then I decided I was going to go into architecture. So I went to the University of Minnesota and studied architecture, or pre-architecture, doing the prereqs to get into the program. And in that process, I ended up in the wood shop in a design class, and I was reminded how much I always loved spending time there. And I, at the same time, had just seen a furniture show that Dean Wilson was an MCAD professor in their furniture design program, and he had several pieces there, and I was super inspired by his work, and that got the wheels turning, and I decided to quit architecture and try to figure out how to become a furniture maker. And my intention was always then to go to MCAD, but even 25 years ago, it was cost prohibitive for me. And but I stumbled into the world of apprenticeships and ended up moving to Chicago and studying with a couple different people, the latter of which was Jeff Miller, and he does a lot of writing and teaching. And I spent about 3 years in his shop and have been breathing sawdust ever since.
Do you want to say anything about the music stand piece in particular?
Oh, sure. So this music stand was a commission from an existing customer who I had built a piece for, and this was actually commissioned as a 60th birthday gift from her husband to Cynthia. And I was given pretty much complete freedom to do whatever I wanted, which was very daunting to me because I don't do a lot of strictly speculative work. I really like the collaboration process between myself and my clients, and for someone to give me free reign, it's kind of unnerving. But so I started, you know, a music stand is a pretty popular thing for a woodworker to build because, you know, it can be sculptural and show off a lot of different things. And I find I don't like a lot of these music stands that I see woodworkers building. But so I started looking for things that I did like, and this one was actually inspired by my pal and former shopmate Ross Peterson, who made a really beautiful music stand and made multiples of them. And you know, I started to distill elements of things I like about a music stand and things I don't like, and this is what I came up with. And Cynthia took up the classical guitar when she retired, and she really wanted something other than the, you know, $20 metal thing you can buy at the music store. And this is all made of walnut, and the splats that are behind the music are made out of koa, curly koa that was left over from a project 20 years ago. And then there's some handmade brass parts and wood knobs and things like that.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. Anybody have any questions?
What was that centerpiece made up again, Jason?
That is koa, K-O-A. That is a member of the acacia family, which only grows on Hawaii.
Cool. Thank you.
It's probably my favorite wood, but I can't work with it because you can't really get it.
It's beautiful.
Thanks.
All right. Next up, we have Mark. So Mark, if you want to unmute yourself.
Can people hear me?
Yep, you're a little quiet.
Oh, well, this is my sole offering, and it's my interpretation of an ancient Egyptian scarab beetle, which is a symbol of rebirth and renewal. I've been doing this type of work for 22 years now professionally. Before that, I was in the corporate world and found it exceedingly soul draining. So I made the leap, and so far so good. My work is a mixture of speculative work and commissions, although now that I'm in my 70s, I'm finding it's much more rewarding to do speculative work, but that does kind of force me to go on the show circuit around the country. And so that's how I usually spend my years now, working in the wintertime in my shop and on the show circuit in the summertime. As you can see, I don't care much about function in my work, which creates a dilemma because a lot of shows have categories you can enter, and those categories have labels to them. The most common label is furniture. And I like to think of my work like I think one of the previous presenters said, it's more interactive sculpture. And that term in itself is really kind of not very descriptive, but at any rate, you can see from this piece that it's got as much non-wood material as it has woods. It's displayed at MacRostie in the open position, so the body of this insect, if you will, and the wings all open up to produce surprises from from within. And that's a characteristic of most of my work, that I believe the true beauty lies within. And so there are hidden surprises and hidden chambers that will reward someone who takes a detour to take a closer look at my work. The upper arms of this particular piece hold a kaleidoscope, and the lower arms hold a treasure tube. Scarabs traditionally are shown holding the sun with their upper hands and the moon in their lower hands. So this is kind of my proxy for that idea. The stained glass is a common palette for the colors of ancient Egypt, with the sands of the Sahara, the blue waters of the Nile, and the fiery red sky. Inside of the center part of this piece, there's a glass carousel, and there's a fair amount of inlay work done. The inlay inlay materials I like to use are mother of pearl, both white, black, and yellow, abalone shell, and jasper is reconstituted jasper, and other types of shells such as snail. They're much different to work with than wood, in that they take a entirely different set of tools. But I think to me, I find it very fulfilling to combine shell and wood and glass and patented copper and brass, all of these to lie on my bench waiting for me to figure out a way of making these seemingly disparate materials a little bit more interesting. The woods I've chosen on this particular piece are figured sapele and Honduras mahogany and birdseye maple. The maple is the body and the sapele is the wings. And the top parts of the wings lift out in these cantilevered bins if you see it on display. So that's about all I could say about this particular piece, unless there are some questions.
So were you saying the wings are made of different stones or what? I didn't quite catch all that.
Well, the front of the wings made of glass. It's all copper foil glass. So
Okay.
it's individual segments of glass that are copper foiled together. The upper part of the wings lift up into like flipper doors, and they lift out these cantilevered treasure boxes. And most of my work is walkabout, which means that you can have a different sight angle from any vantage point. So the back of this piece is just as pretty as the front. In fact, it'd be hard pressed to tell what the front and the back is.
Super.
I'm curious what the overall size of this piece is. It's a little hard to tell from the photo.
Yeah, it's probably about 65 inches wide and 50 inches high and probably 15 inches deep. It's a large piece.
So you just bend a little bit to look through the kaleidoscope for reference.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I said if you're standing up, you can bend down just a little to look through the kaleidoscope.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah, it gives you an overall sense of the size.
Is it at MacRostie so we could see the back of it? Excuse me.
Yeah, it is.
Come in person?
Sure could.
Great. Okay, that's
You
great.
could also buy it if you're so inclined.
Oh, how much is it?
Well, that depends. Now, this piece is probably around $17.5, I think is the price we have on it. I'm not sure.
Well,
Any other questions for Mark?
Well, I have to comment again, as with Richard Helgeson, I was lucky to purchase one of Mark's pieces. And not this piece, is a totally different, let's say, as all of them, phantasmagoric and full of surprises and fun. So you come to my house, you can see one, or you go to Mark's website and you can see one.
okay, right.
And thanks, Roger, for your support.
All right, we will move along then to Steph Luniescu, who is our next artist. So if you want to get yourself unmuted.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So can you hear me?
Mhm.
So I started woodworking just around 2014. I went to college for film production, and I worked in the TV industry for a while and realized I wanted a creative career that I had more control over than film production. And so I started woodworking just like with YouTube and instructions from my dad over the phone. And I decided I needed to go to school to learn how to really do what I wanted to do. And so I went to the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship in Maine. So I went to their 9-month program in 2016. And then I was a fellow there for 4 months also after that. And since then, I moved back to Minnesota, and I've been working for some cabinet makers, and for the past year or so, working in a shop for myself with a bunch of the people who are on this call, which is an amazing shop, and amazing people to be in a shop with. But yeah, so this table I made in school. And the main focus for this was incorporating a curved element. So those are laminated curves down at the bottom of the table. And that was really the only requirement. So it kind of took shape when I was studying my guitar, and the strings of the guitar made me realize I wanted some sort of cable or wire element to make it look like it was supporting the table, but also just to like bring some interesting, something that can fill the negative space in an interesting way. And so I think this really worked out. The wires are not actually integral to the structure, but I wanted to make it appear that they were. And that's why I made the bottom of the table as light and delicate as I could, in order to highlight the wires and make it seem as light as possible. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this table.
That is so cool. It's is it something that you use, or are you selling it, or what?
This was a gift for my dad. So he has it in his house and he puts orchids on it, and it looks really beautiful like that.
Cool, good.
Any other questions for Steph?
Is it all one type of wood across the whole table?
Yes, so this is all white oak, and I chose that for its strength because I wanted to make it thin at the bottom, and I just thought it would be a good wood that would kind of blend in to highlight the wires.
Why did you name it Chicago?
So my grandpa was a carpenter in Chicago. I never actually learned anything from him because I took up the art form a little late. So this is just one of my early pieces that I'm really proud of. And so it's kind of an homage to him.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
All right, well, we will move on to our next artist then. Ed, if you are with us and want to unmute.
I am here.
Wonderful.
Thank you for this opportunity. This has been fun. I've learned quite a bit about some of my cohorts just from this meeting.
Cool.
So I've been messing with wood ever since I was a child, one way or another, making decorative pieces and some functional stuff and this and that. As an adult, I spent a few years meddling with wood carving and did a bunch of that stuff. And as my kids got older and started leaving the home, I was able to spend a lot more time getting into furniture, which is what I really wanted to do. And so I was building, pieces of furniture for family members, and it got to the point that nobody needed anything anymore. And I love furniture building so much, I wanted to do it after I retired from the corporate world, where I did mathematical modeling of complex mechanical systems for decades. And I wanted to leave the analytical stuff behind and get into the real stuff. So 6 years ago, I set up my own little company, and I do commission work as it comes along. Certainly not not my way of making a living, but I really enjoy it. This piece here, I call it meld. What it is, it's a meld of several different styles of furniture, which cover a couple of centuries of time, actually. And I wanted to do something I've learned a little bit from Mr. Mark Laub about surprises. Now, the surprises in this piece don't come anywhere near close to the stuff that he puts in his pieces. But I wanted to do something a little bit different because I've been pretty much stuck on doing a lot of shaker reproduction furniture and shaker design stuff. And that shows up in this piece. So it's a meld of Shakerism. If you look at this piece from the front, it's purely Shaker. It uses all the Shaker geometric proportioning design rules. It's got a very classic Shaker door. The moldings of the top and that separator bar that goes there between the shelf and the door is very Shaker. But from the front, the very first couple of things aren't very Shaker. One, the door doesn't have a knob on it. That's something very unshaker. And then the back with a little cubby there at the top it's got a decorative panel in it. Also then, if you look at the cabinet from the side, it is very unshaker because the Shakers did not make their joinery prominent. They thought that was too brash, and the Lord wouldn't like that. But when the Craftsman came along, the Craftsman design period, they did. So this cabinet has exposed joinery, dovetails that hold the bottom to the cabinet, and then the shelves that come through. And then once you figure out how to open the door that doesn't have a handle, what you find on the inside is a couple of drawers, which also don't have knobs. And if you do a little bit of exploration, you discover that they have modern touch latches. You push the drawer in and it pops out and opens up for you. Also, then the bottoms of the drawers have the same designer pattern that you see up there where the bowls are. And the back of the cabinet is covered in a very highly figured Nigre veneer. Again, very unshaker, but I wanted to have a little bit of a surprise when you open the door. So that's that piece. Now here, this is the elm. The perspective on these two photos doesn't quite show it very much, but if you look at it, the bench seat is bent. It's got a big bow in the middle. And if you look at the legs that hold it up, they're also bowed and warped. The inspiration for this piece, which is a significant departure from all the traditional stuff I do, came from the tree itself. This tree grew next to my barn. It's been there for a long, long time. It was on the edge of the woods, so it was trying to fight on the eastern edge, so it was always trying to fight for morning sunshine. And then the prior owners of our property here built a barn right against it, so it had to grow up and reach over the roof of the barn to get that sunlight it needed. And so it developed a very significant curve in its trunk. And then along came Dutch elm disease a number of years ago. It died. I had to take it down, and I had it sawed into lumber. And the lumber lie in the drying pile for, probably 6 years. And on the 7th year, all of a sudden it developed this great big bow and all the warps. And I looked at that and I tried to figure out what to do with it. And one day I decided, that needs to be a bench. So that's what it is. It's just solid elm. If you get a chance to look at it at the exhibit at the museum or at the art center, you also notice it's full of what people call wormholes. Actually, they're powder post beetle tracks. It looks very rugged, but it's a nice, comfortable bench, and it was a lot of fun to make. Really challenging because there's not a square corner on it anywhere. Next, there should be one more piece.
There we go.
Yep. Here's what I've been doing for quite a few years, making reproductions of Shaker furniture. A lot of people mistake this for a 1950s Danish modern table, but actually it's an exact reproduction of a Shaker table, which was designed, around 1830. It's all solid cherry. The legs are tapered both in width and depth. The nice wine vase, wine bottle shaped pedestal it's really, I love to feel it. It just feels good. And so does the top. The top is very thin, and it looks even thinner than it is from the front because of the tapered edges. And I always spend a lot of time on these tables putting a very velvety feeling finish on them. And I always encourage people who have the opportunity to visit it in real life to touch it and feel it and experience experience the wood for themselves.
Cool.
So any questions?
No, but that cabinet was so super with the side, what do you call it? Where it wasn't shaker with the outside and they thought that was too brass. Anyway, it
Mhm.
just accents it so great. I mean, that keeps making the whole thing really special.
Oh, thank you.
Did you cut out in the bench, did you cut out the little figure on the side, a flower or whatever it is?
Yeah, it's actually a sort of a schematic diagram of an elm tree.
Oh, cool. Okay.
It's carved in there. It's
Okay.
one on each end.
Good. That really adds to it too. I love the history. I'm glad you told us what happened to the tree. And
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I think, so the next few images here are just from Craig Johnson, who I don't believe was gonna be able to join us this evening, but I'll just kind of move through those at this point. If anybody wants to chime in on anything, they sure can. And then we'll get on to, I think if Dale and Roger are still with us, I've got them coming up here too. So let's see. There we go. There we've got Dale. So Dale, are you still on the call? Yep,
Can you hear me?
I can hear
How am I
you.
sound? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Dale Johnson, Three Lakes, Wisconsin. The piece that I've included this year is called The Other Sister. It's a hair cabinet to a similar shape, but in an open form. Before I get too far along, my background, I probably am a little bit unique to this group is in the fact that woodworking is the only way I've ever made a living. Since I was 16 years old in high school, my jobs were at lumber yards, furniture companies. My passion grew in high school from our industrial arts classes, and I came out of high school knowing that I wanted to be a woodshop teacher. With a minor detour in the architectural woodwork business and my own cabinet business, I eventually became a teacher and taught for about 20 years. The whole time doing speculative work on the side, and as some of us have also said, I really enjoy speculative work. Working under the guidelines of a commission is good, is necessary, but I really enjoy coming up with a unique design and developing it. I have a extensive process, which I'm sure we all do, that I go through from concept to finish, and really enjoy that process, and really enjoy creating a unique design and in the speculative world. So this cabinet was a second in a series and is open. The first cabinet was closed and intended to be a spice cabinet in a kitchen. This was intended to be a herb garden in a kitchen, and we use it. We have it in our home, and we use it for seasonal displays. We have a extensive collection of turnings that we collect from craft shows around Minnesota and Wisconsin, and display those. So it's really worked out well as a seasonal type display cabinet. It's open and airy. It includes quite a bit of lattice work, and I have done quite a bit of lattice work in pieces in the past, and I didn't realize it until I sat back and started looking through things that I've done. And I've done a lot of bent lamination lattice work. I really enjoy bent laminations. These are all bent laminations, which I have a lot more confidence in and holding their shape and consistency. The piece is red birch from a tree that was cut at the end of our driveway here. And I was lucky enough to get about 3 or 4 pieces of furniture from that single log. I really enjoy sourcing material and having a story that goes along with the piece, and a lot of times that story includes the material and where it came from and so forth. We've recently relocated from Minnesota to Wisconsin. We got a new shop and a new undertaking, and really enjoying things here. And it's been great to stay in touch with everybody. So thanks again for enjoying the show.
Oh, before you go on, Katie, I
Yep, go
just
ahead,
want
Molly.
to say to Dale that I could tell that there's shelves there, but it feels like looking at it, you don't want to put too much on those shelves because the beauty of the lattice is so cool. Do your pieces, are they small enough to, still be able to enjoy the whole cabinet?
Yeah, I'm very specific about how we place things. We have small wood turning, small ceramic works,
Good. Yeah.
and just a few is all it takes.
Yeah. Good.
It's kind of interesting how you can look through the cabinet and out through the window and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you said spice racks at first, I thought, well, that's good because those are usually smaller and you would, do that. But you're being able to do it for yourself. You sound like you've just figured out the perfect way to display things.
Yeah, it's a great seasonal display. We change it over 3 or 4 times a year with the seasons or the holidays. And
did you say you live in Wisconsin now?
yeah.
Well, what town?
3 Lakes, over north of Rhinelander,
Okay.
north of Green Bay.
All right. Well, if I ever get that way, I'll have to stop by so I can see what you've put in it.
Go Packers.
Okay.
We love the Packers.
Right.
All right. I don't think Lori was on the call tonight, but here's a few of her pieces. And then Roger, I believe, is still with us. So Roger, if you wanted to jump on and talk a little bit about your work here.
All right, I will do that. Is it clicked on now? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. My background is a bigger surprise to me than to most people I tell it to, and that I started out in special education and graduate school, credits to keep going in special ed, after which I ended up in prison, and that was in corrections education. And as we used to joke, I got a life sentence and retired from corrections. Yeah, it's nice to get a parole. And that was with Minnesota Department of Corrections, and it was an unbelievable and fantastic experience. And I loved almost every minute of it. Had a few rough spots, but it was good. My woodworking has been going on since I was a kid, like a couple of the other guys here, and starting with wood carving and whittling and making a fort and pounding nails and stuff. And then as a young married man with a new baby, I started making a baby bed to fit the cradle size bed mattress. And it went on from there. There was a time when I was trying to be a master of all trades, and it became a jack of all trades and a master of none, and music and sports and everything else. So I decided to stick with furniture and go that direction for my avocational and hobby interest. I've been self-taught primarily up until almost retirement. And I went out to Center for Furniture Craftsmanship, as Stephanie had, for a 2-week course. That's all I could afford at the time. And a few things there under Tom Hucker opened up the world for me in some techniques, and it just made life terrific. I'm influenced more by shape, perhaps, than other things. I don't build many straight line things in our first piece here, but the shape, I like the geometrics, just the dramatic triangular, oval, and square and rectangular. It's white oak top, mahogany legs, a whitewashed maple oval bar, and an ebonized red oak triangular bar. It's one of my favorite pieces. It's simple, clean, and nice. I too went on a music stand hunt, but it started out, I've had worked in concert with Craig Blacklock, a nature photographer who lives up in Moose Lake and has his studio's Moose Lake, and he has a store in Duluth called Waters of Superior. Craig asked me to make a book stand for him to eventually make multiples so he could put them in stores where his books or his photography books are sold. I started with this sort of wishbone leg and the stem. And by the time I got a rough one made, he said, "Nah, I found some in a store, so forget it." So I let the thing sit for several years thinking, that could be a music stand if I figure out something and how to construct it. So over the years, the light bulbs came on now and again and turned off as well again. So this is the result of that. The stem is curved. The black part you see in there is a slider connected to the music rack. There's a fixing pin in the back with a wooden knob you pull out, and you can adjust the height of the music rack depending if you're standing or sitting. That is an ebonized oak slider piece, and the rest of the material is whitewashed maple. It's adjustable. Unknowns to me till later in looking at it, it has kind of an anthropomorphic music stand with the ribs there, but they were intended to be roughly representative of music notes. Okay, you can click to another one. The little plant stand there was just an exercise. A friend of ours in the Minnesota Woodworkers Guild, Richard Goetz, wrote an article on a better way to make a 3-way miter, which all of these corners are a 3-way miter. The Japanese have a method of doing it all sawn by hand, from each stick being a single piece. And Richard made a really simplified and beautiful method to make it. So I made a couple of these stands. It's a walnut, floating walnut top, and that's I think it's a white oak on the legs. The rocker, and you can see another one behind me here, it's not in the show. So I didn't have room to put it in the car. I made a number of these. They're handmade with the spoke shave and a scorp, which is a curved draw knife, if you will, to scoop out the seat form. And I can't do reading in bed these nights because my nightstand is up there in the show. There's 2 of these. Kind of with an Art Deco thing, some influence from a guy named Ruhlmann in France, who during the Art Deco period was probably the world's best known and most fantastic designer of Art Deco furniture. Interestingly, though, he didn't work in the shop. He had his little minions out there, which those guys must have been fabulous woodworkers because his stuff is exquisitely detailed everywhere. Mine is, I guess, my attempt at exquisite detail. It's clad, it's a substrate of MDF clad with walnut, shop-made veneer, about 16th inch thick. Every piece, the door are book matched, the drawer is book matched, the top, bottom, and sides are book matched, and inside it's maple, and all of those panels are also book matched veneer throughout. And the handles are holly, which is a nice, very minimal grain visible wood. It's white. And all of the other, the trim, white lines, etc., in the legs and in the doors is also maple. Okay.
Oh, looks like I forgot your big tools. I got the chair in, but I missed the tools.
Keep flipping, or is it there, or is it
Okay.
just?
Well, let's see here. We'll go through.
Those are Greg's.
Uh-oh. Nope, that's it. Well, can you, so for those of us who have seen them or who are going to come into the gallery, I know there's a few on the call who have already been in to see them, the larger than life wood tools, if you want to say just a few words about those.
Well, yeah, I like to do some stuff that's a bit whimsical and fun, and take them down to the Minnesota Woodworkers Guild show, where the term Minnesota Woodworkers Guild sometimes is interpreted by everybody as the Minnesota Furniture Makers Guild, which it's not. So I made it another one of my, this is what you get from working in prison. One day I said, I should make a 5-foot long chisel, not to break out or anything. So I made a 5-foot long chisel. Technically it's a gouge. It's that curved blade that you gouge out scoops with. Decided to have it inserted into a piece of wood as if it were raising a chip, a curved chip, as chisels do. And on that, I tried to get all the grain on the block of wood that it's in to look like a totally solid block with end grain, sapwood following sapwood around where it belonged. And the blade itself looks like steel, and gets a lot of comments out. It's actually wood. I made it out of maple. The handle is basswood, and it's around like you would have a chisel handle, but it's all hand shaped, no lathe work. And people said, "How'd you get that chip?" And I said, "Well, I carved it on the bench and put it in." I guess it's hard to explain until you see it, but it's a lot of fun, and it's for sale. I don't know.
Who doesn't need a giant chisel?
Well, the title of it is "Where Are You Gonna Put It?" Because every time I'd have a friend in the shop and, you know, I'm raving about this cool thing, and first thing they would say is not that it's cool, there was, "Where are you gonna put it?" I'm making a piece now, I'll not describe it here, but it's more wild. And people say, "Where are you gonna put it?" And I just casually say, "Oh, the Smithsonian." Somebody even said, "Really?" I wish. Thank you. Any questions?
That was so great, Roger, with both of you guys, with your unique music stand, book stand. That is so cool. And when you were talking about your nightstand, you kept saying book matched. What do you mean by that?
Well, if you were to take a board, let's say 1 inch thick, and slice it down the middle to make 2 pieces 1/2 inch thick, and you open them like a book, like that, those are then book matched.
Oh, I see. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yep. You get nice symmetry. If you have some interesting grain in the piece of wood, you get some nice symmetry mirrored.
Right,
piece.
right. Super.
All right, well, I'll just move us along here because in the interest of time, I'm going to see if there's any last questions. We've just got some images of Greg Stevens' work. Greg's on the road, so he couldn't be here tonight, I don't think, unless he popped on. But these are some of his pieces as well. And I would encourage anyone who's able to come into the gallery. We are open Tuesdays through Saturdays, 10 to 4. Just bring a mask or you can use one of ours if you are able to come and check that out. It's up through the end of the month. And just wanted to say, thanks to our sponsors of the exhibit, the Loggy Dome and Oak Hill Assisted Living. And I think I'll stop sharing my screen and open it up. If folks have any questions that they want to, or any discussion, people can just kind of unmute themselves and feel free to say any words.
Oh, I thought it was fun being able to talk to each one each time. That really, it's just been really fun. Thank you so much for doing this, Katie. I just love it. Hope to get in on any other ones that you have.
I appreciate your comments and your questions and your interest in this stuff.
Yeah, big thanks to everybody for providing such great information and background. It's really, it just gives the pieces a lot more, you know,
Right.
interest. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Yes, go see them in person if you can.
I will. Boy, I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Does anybody else have any final questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll stop recording and I'll be sure to share this with you afterwards. So. Okay, well, thanks again to all of the artists for being here, and thanks to our guests for joining us as well and for asking great questions. And yeah, hope you get a chance to check out the show and have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you guys for putting up a good show, and thanks, Craig, for your work in organizing it.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Craig, and thanks, Katie.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.